and your emails. Let me get first to Nick, who's calling in from Reno, listening on a great radio station, KKFT. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing great. It's good to be on the air with you, Lars. It was your topic a little bit earlier when you were talking about cutting spending, because I know I already pay plenty of taxes. The thing that concerns me as a Republican is that Romney really doesn't get specific on what he's going to cut.
I have an idea for why. I have an idea of why he won't do that, but that concerns you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's easier to flip-flop when you don't commit in the first place. And it really worries me because he has no strict idea of what he's going to cut. And so I think Tampa could be a wonderful opportunity to drag him out and say specifically, man, what are you going to cut? You've been taking us conservatives, basically for granted for many, many months.
Yep.
You've done anything to woo us or to draw us to your camp.
Agreed.
Specifics on what you're going to cut so we can support you. Otherwise, man, guys like Ron Paul and other guys that are making so much more sense fiscally, they're going to keep getting the support because they are specific. And
I know you're a Ron Paul fan, right, Nick?
Oh, of course.
Okay,
yeah.
I understand. But here, can I tell you let me tell you the practical problem with that. My wife, in fact, I was driving out. We're doing the show from a different town, from one of my affiliate stations today, KBND, and she said, "Why is it that when they vote to repeal Romney or Obamacare, that they're not proposing the alternative?" And I said, "Well, the alternatives have been proposed, and I would rather actually see them done piecemeal rather than as one giant package." And this kind of ties into my answer on Romney. But see if this makes sense to you. If Romney comes out today, he did tell the crowd today, and I'm going to play that audio in a moment because I want you to hear this crowd boo him, but I want you to hear how when he wrapped up, they gave him a pretty good round of applause, which you're probably not going to hear on a lot of the network news. But let me tell you why, and you see if this makes sense. If a political candidate like Romney comes out and says, well, the first thing I'm going to cut is I'm going to cut food stamps in half. What he's just done, without any real political gain, because we want him to do that, but I think all the people who want him to do that are the ones most likely to vote for him. But what he's also stirred up is a group of people who are a constituency of that program. So by giving you specific targets to say we're going to cut food stamps in half, we're going to take unemployment and limit it to only 12 weeks, which I don't think would be unreasonable. But I can say that as a talk show host. But if Romney says it, he immediately becomes a target, and instead of the overall goal being the important thing, which is, do we need to reduce the amount of money that a federal government spends when it spends 50% more than it takes in, everybody can say yes to that. But when you then say, so we're going to cut food stamps in half, all of a sudden, boom, that becomes the target. And I guess if you can figure a way around that, when you give people in specific constituencies a target like that, then somebody like Obama can go out and say, see, he's going to take your food stamps away from your family when you need them most. And he knows that most of the people in America, the majority are not on food stamps, but a disturbing number, 50, 60 million, are. And he's immediately made himself a target, and Obama ends up looking like the good guy. I'm going to make sure you get your food stamps, and that guy's going to take them away. And it may ensure, if you approach it that way, it may ensure that you don't get to be president, which doesn't solve the problem. Does that make sense?
Bittersweet. Yeah, it is. It makes sense, but it's a bittersweet process because he's not drawing any support from these conservatives. He thinks people are just going to have to vote for Romney by default because he's not Obama. But when you don't distinguish yourself fiscally from Obama, the only thing he's done to say, I'm going to be different, is say, I want 10% federal spending cut. Well, by the time you actually get that through Congress, it's going to be worked down to 5%, and that's only non-military. So he's not getting specific, and he's just taking the people who are still conservatives for granted. And we're actually looking at Gary Johnson a lot more because Gary Johnson knows about. But
neither Ron Paul nor Gary Johnson. By the way, I'm going to remind the producer back there. We got phone lines ringing. I want to make sure we get those people on the air. But the problem is that Johnson does not have a prayer of becoming president. In fact, I don't understand really, and we've had him on the show a number of times, so he certainly had his chance to make his case. But neither does Ron Paul have a chance to be president. Because if you think...
Nebraska does.
What's that?
Nebraska will decide. Nebraska's holding their state convention this weekend. If Ron Paul gets the plurality there, he's on the ballot in the convention. And then we can actually have a good debate a good, lively debate to draw Romney.
Well, tell me this. I want to ask you as a final question on this one, Rick, Nick, because I understand the point you're making. And believe me, I may be more frustrated with Romney than you are, because one of the constituencies he's avoiding to make sure that he doesn't have to deal with conservatives is he's avoiding all of talk radio, including yours truly. Now, in the last campaign, he went on a lot of talk shows, including mine, on an ongoing basis. And now his campaign just says, I'm sorry, the governor is not available. Now, of course, he shows up on TV because his absence would be notable. But let me ask you this question. If Romney is the best chance to beat Obama, and I think he is, and I'm not crazy about him as a candidate, but he is the best chance to beat Obama, and this country can't take 4 more years of this, nor 2 more Supreme Court justices that'll flip everything on his head. Do you think it'll be more or less likely for him to be president if he comes out and names specific programs that he plans to target for cuts?
Me personally, I would think I would have reason to support him if he would get specific. But
you need to get out more, because there are an awful lot of people out there who will make, and this is a problem at every level of politics, Nick, and I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying this is one of those things that is a constant frustration. If the governor of the state thinks, for instance, the state that I do my broadcast from, Oregon, has about a dozen different commissions, and most of them are pretty stupid. They are the Commission on Women's Affairs, and the Commission on Hispanic Affairs, and the Commission on Black Affairs, and the Commission on, every little constituency. And you wonder, if you want to have groups like NAACP or Urban League, fine. Fund them privately, have the people who think they get value out of them put up the money, but why does the government need to do that? And yet I can guarantee you that if a Republican governor said, I'm going to get rid of all those commissions, or half of them, that the constituencies they represent would absolutely go ballistic. They would say, how dare you get rid of the Commission on Black Affairs? And you think, well, what purpose does it serve? A government? Yeah, and yet the minute you stir up that constituency, you've got a hornet's nest on your hands. And while the majority of people may say, yeah, that's a great idea, get rid of it, the fact that you've got this angry little constituency, it could cause you a real problem. And since an awful lot of elections these days turn on 1 or 2 percentage points, it could be enough to cost you the election if you're running. And if that's the goal, to do the right thing but not end up being president, where you can do the right thing, then it fulfills the goals. You've stuck to your principles. But did you change anything for the public? No, you left us with 4 more years of Obama.
Well, here's the point as well. You brought up the Supreme Court justices. Roberts was a GOP. I mean, he was put in by a Bush. Yeah. That didn't help us at all, did it? I mean,
it didn't help us in Obamacare. It did help us on a couple of other decisions, but
Obamacare is the one that's the biggest taxpayer.
I absolutely agree with you, but here's the problem. No matter how carefully you choose Supreme Court justices, they may look one way on paper, and a few years later they look completely different in real life. And I don't know of any way to guarantee that. We probably Bush probably should have picked somebody else, because Roberts has been a gigantic disappointment. But I don't think that's relevant to this discussion. This discussion is, how do you get somebody to be the president of the United States who's actually a fiscal conservative and a business owner who knows how to run America like a business instead of running it like a charity operation, which is what Obama's doing. He's writing checks to everybody under the sun for no reason whatsoever. Write check to to various solar power plants and developers and all this. What good does that do? It doesn't, but it satisfies constituencies. So if you play right into his hands, yes?
He's buying votes with our tax.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I worry Romney would do. It'll just be a different group of voters. Instead of the unions, it'll be the military-industrial complex. If we don't pin Romney down, say, you can't be throwing around this money. We want some specific numbers on what you're going to cut, percentages that you're going to have as thresholds. Be a businessman. Give me the numbers,
Fair enough. And I would even go with the Ryan budget. But I don't think you're going to get it out of Romney. 17 minutes after the hour. Back in just a moment. Glad